Hey, welcome back to KP Reddy Unpacked. If you have never been here before, this is my opportunity to ask KP Reddy, hey, what were you thinking when you posted that on LinkedIn? My name is Jeff Eccles. I'm a senior advisor at Shadow Partners. And of course, I am joined, most importantly, by KP Reddy. Hi, KP.
Hey Jeff, how's it going?
It's going really well. If you're out there listening to this now and you're going, hey, what are these guys talking about? That probably means that you're not following KP on LinkedIn, and you need to be doing that. My one question is, why are you not? Just go to LinkedIn, search KP Reddy, KP Reddy, KP Reddy, and you'll find posts several times a day. KP's over there posting about conversations he's had. Many times he's sitting in to a mastermind group or an incubator session with me, and he's got some insights about what we talked about, things that came out of that, or just the conversations that he has as he travels. A lot of really great, insightful posts over on LinkedIn, and I have the opportunity every week to say, hey, KP. What were you thinking? What inspired that post? And today is no different. So, KP, the one that we selected to unpack today starts out like this. The linchpin activity for a founder is customer discovery. They should personally perform these activities. Customer discovery is the single most important activity for corporate innovation. However, I have learned that it is near impossible for this to be done, quote unquote, in house. Why? Internal teams don't have that muscle. Best case, they end up selling the client. Worst case, they confuse their customer. Existing customers have a hard time being candid with an existing relationship. So, that may be somewhat self-explanatory. What were you thinking? What inspired this? But let's go back. What you're traveling around a lot right now
Mhm.
doing customer discovery workshops. Our incubator focuses on customer discovery. You mentioned founders, you mentioned corporate. That's a whole lot wrapped up into just a few sentences of this post. But what's important about this? What's most important about this to you?
Yeah, I think what's really important is I have this attitude like everybody should think like a startup and behave like a startup. That's just how
Hmm.
everybody should, I mean, even big
Sure.
companies.
Right.
And I think what hit me was that maybe I was being unrealistic,
Hmm.
not because of their unwillingness to, right? Like I can tell a corporate like, oh, you should cold call 20 people, and they
Hmm.
may have some cultural resistance to that because they've never done it, et cetera, right? And I get that. And there's those things like suck it up, go do it anyway. Like I'm gonna push on that, right?
Yeah.
Just like our incubator companies. I'm like, I don't want you talking to your friends. I want you cold calling.
Hmm.
Um, and it drives a certain behavior and a lot of wincing and things like that. And so there are certain like cultural behaviors that I will push and say like, no, I don't care if you're a corporate, you go do it, right? If you
Hmm.
want to find the truth, you shall go do it. Um, but I think what I kind of got taken aback by was when I was talking to some of our clients and partners that they don't know how to, that it's not necessarily. I mean, partly it's a skill set. They don't have the skill set, but one, they've never launched a new product or service in their career. They
Yeah.
step into companies, into traditional businesses, then they respond to RFPs, they respond to bids. They never invented any of it.
Right.
So they've never had to. It's already been templatized and cookie cuttered for them from the day they started at the firm. Um, Two, because of that, they don't have the muscle. They've never done it, right? So then
Hmm.
the third part is they have these great, deep existing relationships, and shifting your relationships thinking when they've known you for 20 years, it's just such a difficult thing, right? Because they don't know. They know if it's a subcontractor taking a GC, calls a GC up and says, "Hey, I'd love to take you to lunch and run some ideas by you." That GC is like, "Oh, they must have heard that we just won this new bid, and they want a shot to bid on the project, right?" Because it's in many ways these relationships we can call them what they are, but they're also relationships that have been built on years of transactions. And
Right.
so the only natural motion is you must want to take me to lunch to either like be grateful because the last job I gave you, or you're trying to get a new job out of me, right?
Mhm.
And so it's really hard to overcome that pre-existing relationship and what that means to both parties. So um, even if the company, this in this case the subcontractor, has the ability to do customer discovery, I don't know that the other end, the GC, will actually know how to react to it. And that's why I said they might get even confused. Like, why are you talking to me about this business or that business? Or it's like bizarre. Why are you asking me all these questions? We
Yeah.
send out bids, you respond to bids. That's our relationship. You get every third one.
Right.
Like, that's just how that
Exactly.
is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you also get into the psychology, in that scenario, right, where we've got this relationship, we've been working together for 20 years and you get every third bid, et cetera. When I approach you and say, "Hey, can we go to lunch?" and you figure out, "Hey, this is," whether you actually have the words or not, whether you actually have that specific knowledge or not, you discover that this is a customer discovery call, which means that something, I'm probably trying to change something, right? Do you get into that psychology then on the other side where we go, you know what, we've been doing this for 20 years. I'm really comfortable with our relationship.
Mhm.
I really understand our relationship. And now you're trying to change something, right?
Mhm.
Does that psychology create resistance to that conversation right out of the gate?
Yeah, I mean, 100%, because I think, yeah, I started to think about it. Like, when you have these preconceived notions about what someone's good at, you
Hmm.
know, it's very hard to break out of it. And it's like uncomfortable,
Right.
and especially if it's something totally different. You know, if you're sitting in your dentist chair and your dentist starts talking to you about, what do you think about athleisure and clothing? You're like, dude, like, what did you do? Sign up for Amway? Are you selling these? Like, what is this converse? Like, you're my dentist. Do dentist stuff. I'll make small talk with you, but I'm here to, like, for you to, like, drill my teeth and do those things. I don't want to talk to you about other things because that's not how I see you.
Okay, I've got a question. Is Amway, does Amway still exist?
I'm sure it does.
Or or is this just another conversation between two old guys?
I think Amway does exist, or it's Herbalife, or
Okay.
I think there's some version of it that exists, right? There's
Okay.
some version of Amway that exists.
All right.
And
There's a tangent there, but
since the beginning of time, they were scammers.
there you go. There you go. So when you're going around, you're doing these customer discovery workshops for, a large engineering firm or a large construction firm, whoever the client or partner is. This is one thing I have wondered because having spent a lot of time in the marketing biz dev world and in AEC, when you start talking about customer discovery, do some of these organizations immediately push back and say, yeah, that's what our biz dev people are out there doing?
Mhm. Yeah, they do say things like that, like, because but I'll tell you is, when I start to unpack customer discovery and what it is and what the key components are, um, they really struggle because on one hand they think their biz dev people can maybe go do it, but
Hmm.
then they realize maybe their biz dev people don't have enough broad knowledge. Right? The benefit of some of whether it's the AC industry, real estate, is once you're in these industries for a long time, there's not a lot of change.
Hmm.
If you do the same activities you did a year ago as a biz dev guy, you're the biz dev person at a GC. If you do exactly what you did a year ago today, you're probably fine. If you do today
Hmm.
exactly what you did 10 years ago, you're probably okay. Right.
Yeah.
And I think the psychology of the people that get into our businesses are the people that like that comfort of lack of change. They like that I deal with my 10, 15 relationships. They send me an RFP. I respond to the RFP. If they sent me something different, Like, I wouldn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, that obviously speaks back to what we were talking about before, that relationship and change, et cetera. But as you were saying that, it reminded me, we had this conversation a week ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that. Um, for those listening, as I mentioned earlier, our startup incubator is for early stage startups, and we focus on customer discovery. And it never fails. Every cohort of the incubator, somebody comes in and they've identified a problem, they've developed a solution, right? This is their big idea. And when we start challenging them on the customer discovery side, they'll say, well, I've worked in the industry for X number of years, and
Mhm.
it always makes me chuckle because I'm like, where have you been? Um, why just that many years? But I've been in the industry for this many years, and I know, right? It's similar to what you said earlier. Quit talking to your friends.
Mhm.
I've talked to my friends. I'm basing this on my own experience, and sometimes it's even we've been building this out. Which, of course, this is the death knell, right? We've
Mhm.
been building this out based on this knowledge that we have of the industry, and they push back. I don't need to do the customer discovery. I already know. And I slacked you about that
Mhm.
during one of the sessions. I said, this one's in a real danger zone because this is what they're talking about.
Mhm.
So, what explain what that danger is better than I did.
Yeah, I think the danger with, especially in our industry, right? Our collective industry, when you have 20, 30 years experience, you think you know everything.
Or 10.
Yeah, or 10. You think, I've been doing this for 20 years.
Mhm.
Like, I already know. I know what you know. And I love it when people quote, well, if Henry Ford asked customers what they wanted, they would have said
Yeah.
faster horses. And I love that because people bring it out of such terrible context, right?
Mhm.
What the reality is, if Henry Ford had done customer discovery, what he would have found out is people wanted to get from point A to point B faster and cheaper and
Mhm.
safer. Um, so that's the reality of it, right? And I think how you frame the questions, how you ask the questions, and how you exhibit massive detachment. It was kind of funny. Um, we're talking about different ideas for some of our customer discovery workshops. And one of the ideas I threw at you, this I think would be like it'll turn into like some kind of reality show. Is we take two founders and they have to do customer discovery on each other's ideas, right? So there's like 100% detachment from the outcome,
Mhm.
and in fact, it could get to where like I'm gonna prove how bad your idea is. Right? Like
Mhm.
to me, winning. I mean, I would do it because I'm a nutcase sometimes. But like, I'd want to be like, oh, I'm going to show you how terrible your idea is. I'm going to go out and do customer discovery with the sole purpose of showing you how bad your idea is, and all you are is full of terrible ideas, right? But it would be a grand experiment to do that,
Yeah.
like a hypothesis swap.
Right.
Um, because one of the biggest things people do is they get attached to so much of their existing
Mhm.
knowledge, their existing ideas, and they miss it. They miss it
Right.
100%. And, it's kind of like when you find out the customer doesn't care about something or it's not that important, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that the opportunity goes away. It could mean that that's a different opportunity.
Right.
I think a lot of times, back in the day of Accenture and IBM, back when IT outsourcing was big, IBM would go into a customer and say, "Look, let us optimize your IT organization." And see if it would be like, "You know what? I don't really care. As long as they don't ask me for more money, I really don't care about it. It just needs to do the work. I need to be able to print, access the internet. Beyond that, I don't care about those folks. Like, it's not a strategic part of our business." Then IBM said, "Well, great. Let me buy it from you. If you don't care about it, then you don't care if I just buy it from you and I run your IT for you. It's not core to your business. So let me do it. And IBM and Accenture and all these guys built great businesses being in the outsourcing business because through that process, they probably figured out like, oh, people aren't going to outsource things that they care about. They're going to
Yeah.
outsource the things that they don't care about or they feel like they don't care about and they're not interested in doing it better. And so I think that open mindedness is what really kind of, gets you to what the real issues are and what the real opportunities are.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I mean, it's whether it's my graduate students or the incubator, I tell them all the same things, right? You started this incubator. When you applied to this incubator, we're recording this now on March 6th. When you applied to this incubator 3 or 4 months ago, if you're the same place, our next session for the incubator will be in 2 days. If you're the same place on March 8th as you were when you applied for this incubator, there's a big problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you predicted the path from whenever you applied to March 8th and you were accurate in that prediction, there's a problem. It means you
Mm-hmm.
haven't challenged, you're too attached.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't challenged the hypothesis. You haven't done the work to understand that value is in the eye of the beholder.
Mm-hmm.
That that customer discovery piece where the customer tells you, hey, I care about this, I don't care about this. This is, the IBM example obviously is a great example. You discover other opportunities and make pivots. Those are my favorite
No, and there's so
projects that
many.
go through the incubator that make those pivots.
Yeah, and that's the idea. Like if you joined it and you don't get anything out of it, like then you weren't open to the idea. I love it too when people reach a point where they said, "Hey, we have proven our affirmative hypothesis."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Great. Well, now I want you to disprove the negative hypothesis."
Yep.
I'm like, "What? Like, why? Why?" I'm like, "Because it's not the same." You know,
Right.
you know, to to um, to to affirm like the positive hypothesis is not the same as it's like, oh well, the negative has to be untrue as well, and then you learn a whole nother thing around that, right? And so I think you have to just be this idea of getting excited about going and building something without having all the information, because the other thing you might find is that yes, there is an opportunity, there is a problem, there is a pain point, but it's not a big enough of a pain that I really care about.
Right. Or
Right. And it's
anybody
like, it's
cares about.
interesting, right? We do our demo day, and the most interesting thing about the demo day is if you have done it well, everyone in that room will be after you.
Mhm.
Right. Because they'll get like, okay, these guys really understand the problem. They've really figured it out. And then they're like, well, we haven't even been able to crack this nut. I need to talk to you.
Yep.
And I think that's like one of those things that, and like I said, it's really, really hard. If you're a large electrical contractor and you go to your GC and say, hey, I want to understand what you guys are thinking about project management software. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? Like, why? You don't even know how to use your computer. I've known you for 30 years. You barely know how to use a computer, and you want to talk to me about technology? Like, oh, you want to talk to me about AI, sir? Like, you just got off your BlackBerry last year. Like, and so there's all that stuff that I think. Well, I like to be critical and challenging of people. I do feel like one of the things I did learn is that I think it is near impossible for corporates to do their own customer or market discovery. And one of their benefits, besides hiring someone to do it for them like us, is maybe you outsource that to a startup. Hey, this
Mhm.
startup is doing something thematically that we really like, that we've been exploring. Why don't we piggyback off their customer discovery? Like, it's okay to invest in a startup just to learn,
Right.
right? Like maybe I don't get a return out of it. Maybe for $100,000, I'm going to learn something because they're really good at customer discovery. I'm going to learn a bunch from them that I couldn't on my own.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I mean, somehow, if you're actually going to do it right, then you're going to invest something into customer discovery. So what is that something? Is it in-house? Is it outsourced? Is it a startup that's really good at it? That's a really great way to frame that. If you're listening in on this discussion, maybe somehow, I don't know how this works.
Mm-hmm.
If you missed the beginning of the tape, the beginning of the recording, KP and I are unpacking one of his LinkedIn posts, and it reads like this: the linchpin activity for a founder is customer discovery. They should personally perform these activities. Customer discovery is the single most important activity for corporate innovation. However, I have learned that it is near impossible for this to be done, quote unquote, in house. Why? Internal teams don't have that muscle. Best case, they end up selling the client. Worst case, they confuse their customer. Existing customers have a hard time being candid with an existing relationship. So, as KP and I have unpacked this post, and this is one of my favorite activities of the week, I get to sit down with KP and say, "Hey, what were you thinking? You know, what inspired um, this post on LinkedIn?" If you were listening to this episode, you heard about a lot of things. You heard about our startup incubator. You heard about our customer discovery workshops. You heard about the fact that KP is going around and speaking and um, consulting and advising a lot of firms around the country. If you have questions about any of that, obviously reach out to us. Shadowpartners.co is the website. Reach out to us and we can fill in the blanks on any of these and more topics. But before we go, I think KP would be remiss if I didn't ask you, because it's by the time this gets published, or this podcast gets published, your book may be published. So you want to talk for just a minute about what your book is and what it's about and why we should read it?
Yeah. Basically, I spent the last year and my entire life, talking to people. I think that's what people ask me what I do for a living. I guess I do customer discovery for a living perpetually, right?
Yeah.
And what I really started to pattern out was there's, I believe this AI thing that we're in is actually a super cycle, and that it's like the invention of electricity. And what we're seeing as near-term applications is a light bulb. It's like, ooh, that's a light bulb. And now we're all running around trying to figure out how many candles can we replace with light bulbs. That's the extent of how we're thinking about AI. I benefit from having a lot of knowledge and experience and access to a lot of things that are happening. And I think people are missing the point there. And part of it is this fear of AI is going to take my job. Right. And so what I cover in the book is like lots of examples where new technologies came in and everybody thought they were going to lose their job. And it turns out they didn't lose their job. They got better jobs. So partly to build some comfort around in this AI super cycle, if you're just going to be afraid, I can't really help you with that. Get a better therapist. But beyond that, like here are a new set of skills that you need to develop in an AI driven world, right? The skills you've had are not going to future proof you in the future. If you can type 200 words per minute, that might have been really relevant before. That's not going to future proof your with an AI world. So the book really covers that and gives people guidance on like here's what you need to be thinking about. Here's the skills you need to be thinking about.
Yeah.
Like my
And the
publisher
book is,
says, it's called Building the Intangible Enterprise. The key critical skills required to thrive in an AI driven world.
yeah. Yeah. I cut you off there. You were going to say your publisher was telling you something.
Yeah, that he felt, like that it's an optimistic book around the future of our business and humanity and all that, which, feels good.
Yeah.
Versus
Yeah.
just
Well, I mean,
scaring the crap
nice
out of
change.
people. Scaring the crap out of people.
This is your alter ego wrote this book then, huh?
Yeah, no. Generally I meet with people, I just scare the crap out of them. That's like what that's my sport. But this
Yeah.
this is the softer side of things. So.
The softer side of KP, creating the intangible enterprise, the critical skills required to thrive in an AI-driven world. If you want to get on the pre-sale list for the book, go to KP's personal website, go to kpreddy.co. So kpreddy.co, kpreddy.co/books. And you can sign up to be on the pre-sale list. But maybe by the time this podcast hits the internets, the book may actually be available. But kpreddy.co/books is where to find out more about creating the intangible enterprise. KP, as always, thanks for joining me today and unpacking this LinkedIn post about customer discovery.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.